Hello, and welcome to the HR Exchange Network's podcast on all things relevant to creating a people-centered workplace in the new era of work. I'm Francesca DeMeglio, the editor of HR Exchange Network, and I'm delighted to be joined today by Stephanie Kalinda, who does digital marketing for HR Exchange Network. She is my partner, in fact, in creating HR-related fabulousness for all of you. And today we're talking about remote work and global hiring. And to start, we have to tell the audience that Stephanie and I are both remote workers. We have actually never met in person, despite having worked together for more than a year now. And we will do that someday because we've made a commitment to each other to do so. But we are both happy in working remotely. It provides a level of flexibility that is unmatched, truly. I can tell you from my point of view as a mom of a disabled child and a 12-year-old son, almost 12-year-old, it is really necessary to fit into my whole world, all the things that I'm juggling. And I have to say, I feel like I end up working many more hours for my employer simply because my office is my home is my office, and it allows to refrain from commute times and other things that come up when you're in an office, like getting distracted by your fellow employees and other people being on the phone and all these other things that come up, those water cooler chats about the reality show that was on last night. It just doesn't happen when you're at home. So you do get a lot of productive time, I find. But I also think a lot of people feel, and there's been so much pushback on remote work lately, that you can't possibly have good relationships with your colleagues or clients, and that you actually are not as productive. I think the two of us have a different experience. What would you say, Stephanie? Tell me a little bit about your
That
idea.
remote work opens up so many possibilities. You can meet people that are outside of your area code. I mean, the skills that you can find in different locations and just creating relationships, and you can really innovate online. It's about what you put into it. I think it can work if you do it the correct way. And I also think that the flexibility and productivity that it provides are unmatched. You can work outside of your hours. Like you said, our offices are in our homes. If there's an email that you need to respond to, you can jump on quickly. It provides you the opportunity to step away and take care of what you need to for family or home matters. I mean, there's just so many benefits to remote work in general. And the pushback on it is a big conversation that we're seeing in the space right now.
It is. It's a huge conversation. I think some of it, and we know this for a fact, if you go back and read our HR news roundups, one of the problems is what they're calling CEO nostalgia. This is the idea that many of the CEOs of today really want to go back to the past when they were in charge of the office and all of that good stuff. And I can see some of their arguments. There is something to be said for meeting in person with your colleagues, for collaborating on projects. But as we also know from our coverage and the research that Michael Arena has shared on our site, which all of you should check out and we'll put in the show notes as well, you can do this very effectively if you're intentional. You can have a hybrid setup or a remote work setup that is intentional. And what does that mean? That means you set a schedule and you make sure that the right people are interacting with each other at the right time. You make sure that you're being inclusive and that you are getting together in person for a distinct purpose. And that's very well defined. And all of the people coming to that meeting place know what their role is and what's expected of them at that meeting. We haven't had the pleasure of doing that yet, as we've said, but we still have found ways to be intentional online. We're very lucky and grateful for the fact that there is technology out there that makes it really possible. I can tell you, I've been working remotely since 2004, and my goodness, how things have changed since then. Back then, I was doing conference calls with people on the phone. They never saw my face. They didn't know what I looked like in some cases. I did eventually end up meeting my whole team in person, barring the people who worked overseas, because there were some of those. But I did meet the American team in person in New York City, which is nearby. But it was very rare. I would meet with them maybe 2 to 3 times a year at most. It was a very fun time. We would usually go to a restaurant, have some kind of celebration. We celebrated a couple of times when we won awards. It wasn't actually for our big meetings to collaborate. We would do that mostly over the phone about story ideas and projects and slideshows. It was for a different website at the time, but still the same concept, creating content. And I think that you and I have effectively done this. And we've talked about this with our entire team, in fact, for full disclosure. So tell me, how do you feel we've done this effectively? How have we made the remote work thing work for us?
I think a big thing that we do is that we stick to our one-on-one meetings, whether that be once a week or if you have to hop on again, but minimum once a week with each team member, you meet, you go over what you need to go over. For us, we talk about what's going on in the space, we talk about what we're doing for campaigns at work, and we really innovate together. We come up with ideas how to boost numbers and how to be productive and how to make the most of our time. And in these meetings, I mean, you can open up so much to someone remotely, and you can really build that relationship if you're open to discussing matters in and outside of work. I mean, remote work, it provides the flexibility, but then you can't ignore the fact that sometimes things happen, a dog barks or a child walks in, like it's going to happen and it's okay. And it's if you have that trust with your team and you build those foundational relationships, you can really make the space to innovate in your meetings.
Yes, and Stephanie is referring to her dog and my child
Yeah.
who have interrupted us in the past. And it's kind of a beautiful thing, actually, because you've never been so open and vulnerable to your colleagues. There's no question about that. And it does require a certain level of setting boundaries and figuring out how this is all going to work. And like Stephanie said, sticking to those hours, those one-on-one meetings, those times you are going to meet just to collaborate, like we're doing right now, frankly. So that brings me to my next question and the next topic that is related to this: global hiring. I find that global hiring is a great way to both diversify your talent pool, but also to find specially skilled talent. It doesn't matter where they are in the world. You can go look for them because you're willing to embrace remote work. And this takes a certain kind of courage right now. We realize that many organizations are not interested in having remote work anymore. Some of this is just because we had to do it during the pandemic, I think. And now people just feel like, oh, we need to be in person again. I think some of it is a power trip. Some of it is also compliance related. I can understand some in the finance fields being concerned about having people working on their personal laptops in their homes when they're trying to meet the compliance demands and keep a close eye on the activities and behaviors of the people who are working for them. However, I do think there also is a level of trust you have to have, and that it actually breeds a healthier workplace if you can do it. Uh, Going back to the global hiring, though, if you can do that, if you can build that trust, if you are willing to embrace remote work and use the technology that is available to us to make this so easy, we now have Zoom and other virtual conference tools. We now have Teams and Slack and these different ways to communicate. We could be online together at any time of day, really, and see each other as if we were in the office. We've created our own offices virtually behind us. So if you're willing to do all of that and embrace those things, global hiring is a way to diversify and to find specially skilled workers. How do you feel about global hiring? What are you hearing about it, Stephanie?
I agree with everything you said, and I think the major win with global hiring is that you can really search for those skills that you need for your organization, and you can find them in any talent pool anywhere in the world. It's not just within your zip code, and And it just opens up the doors for so many more opportunities for people to join your team and really, and those could be the ones that come up with the next winning idea for you. You never know if you don't give them a chance just because they're outside of your city.
So true. And you know, the diversity question, this comes up a lot. We cover diversity. It is near and dear to our hearts here at HR Exchange Network. And truly, it is an easy way to diversify your talent pool and diversify your team. It's a way to build a team that is made for innovation. So we all know that diversity allows, and I'm talking about representation right now, allows the gateway for innovation. Once you have the representation, that means people from different backgrounds. And that doesn't just mean race, which sometimes gets confused for that in the United States. That means different ethnic groups. That means race. That means different religions, different sexual orientation, all different groups, abled and disabled. We have all of these different groups that we want to bring into the mix to make sure that we are more of a reflection of our society, the community that we're trying to serve. And in addition, however, it can't stop with just the representation. And what global hiring allows you to do is create an exchange of sorts, a cultural exchange among your employees. When it's done right, you can make this a really inclusive environment that creates that sense of belonging for the individuals within it. And that allows for a lot of brainstorming, collaboration that leads to innovation. Because when you have those different perspectives, people can come up with different ideas on how a product should be built to help someone maybe who is in a wheelchair, or how a different service should be delivered to help someone who has a different cultural perspective than yours. And that can be a very useful tool when you're trying to stay competitive and get ahead of the crowd. I mean, really, it's something different that others might not be doing. Stephanie, what kinds of challenges do you foresee people having with the global hiring? And then maybe I can talk about some of the ways we can address that.
The first one that comes to mind is taxes, and compliance issues surrounding with hiring in different areas and different, even nations, states, everything. I mean, so that comes to mind first. And I think that there are ways to overcome this. First being with an employer of record.
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you brought up the employer of record companies. These are companies that allow you to actually have a global and diverse talent pool, because they stand in as the employer. They stand in your place on paper. What does that mean? They will be the ones to handle the taxes and payroll for you. They'll make sure that you are being compliant in the local region where you're hiring. That means you're, you know, following employment law according to that particular country. You're making sure safety regulations are in place. You're paying all the different fees and taxes that are required of you, and you're doing everything according to the letter of the law. It takes the burden off the shoulders of the, let's say, American company or whichever company it is that is using this employer of record to hire outside of their own nation. The other thing about global hiring and employer of record companies, it eases your stress, but it also does the work for you. The hard part, which is the paperwork, the bureaucracy, that's taken care of. And you're left to focus on choosing the right talent, the people who are the right fit for you, and how you're going to integrate them into the company. And I feel like this is the area where HR and recruiters and talent acquisition managers, this is where they shine. It's the type of work that they want to do. They don't want to be doing the paperwork, let's face it. They want to be thinking strategically about the talent that they're hiring, how they're going to align their skills with the objectives of the company and the mission of the company, and how to build a positive, psychologically safe workplace for a global workforce. Don't you think, Stephanie?
Yes, I agree. And we have a great resource on our site about EOR. So it's an EOR guide for employers, and we'll leave the link in the description for you to download it.
Yes, and that guide will provide you with all kinds of information. It's chock full of statistics related to both remote work and global hiring. And it also provides you with an explanation of how EOR companies can help you strive and thrive in this new global workplace while trying to hire global talent. And as a result, you'll be able to get people who have the skills, the particular skills that you need to make good on these goals that you're setting for 2024 and beyond. And with that, Stephanie and I are going to sign off. Did you have any final thoughts or anything you wanted to say to the community, Stephanie?
Just wanted to say thank you for having me here today on this really important conversation that's near and dear to my heart. So thank you for this opportunity.
That's great. We are grateful to have you and to have all of you audience with us. I hope you will take a look at that EOR guide and download it and share your thoughts with us. You can reach us on LinkedIn, Twitter, now known as X, Threads. I'm the HR queen at Threads, so please check that out. And also Instagram and, of course, LinkedIn, as I said before. We hope to also see you at our upcoming events and on hrexchangenetwork.com, where you can find the latest in news and HR trends always. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.